everybody, I'm Katie Marsh, the head of Bookmobile Services for the Beverly Public Library, but not today. Today, I am leading us in another installment of the Quarantine Kitchen. Now, if you are like me, you're out of bread. It's just a thing, I can't find it anywhere. So today, we're gonna make our own bread. This is a family recipe for an enriched white bread. I'll go through some ingredient substitutions in case you're out of some of the things in here. But if you're out of flour though, this video is not for you. Okay, so let's get started. I have about 2 cups of warm milk. I just stuck this in the microwave for about 1 minute just to heat it up a little bit. And you're just gonna dump it right in the bowl like that. Then you are going to take some yeast. This is the equivalent of 2 packets of active dry yeast, or you can use 4.5 teaspoons of yeast if you're measuring it. And you're just gonna dump it in there on top of the milk. Next, you are going to take about 4.5 cups of flour. This gets a little wobbly with the measurements. Again, it's a family recipe. You're just gonna go with it. So about 4.5 cups of flour, and you're just gonna dump it on top. Next, you are going to take a teaspoon, and you're gonna need about 3 tablespoons of oil. It can be any type of oil, probably not olive oil, because that will mess with the flavor a little bit. So this is canola oil. You're gonna take 3 tablespoons, 3 heavy tablespoons, so you can actually just kind of leave it going while you're adding it. Then you're gonna take some honey and add about 2 tablespoons of honey. I also microwaved this for about 20 seconds. No, that's way too long, 10 seconds, just to get the honey flowing. And I'm using the same tablespoon pro tip that I use the honey, the oil in, so that the honey is less likely to stick to the spoon. Now, if you do not have honey, you can use maple syrup, you can use sugar, you can use corn syrup, or if you don't like sweet bread, you can just skip it all together. I think it adds a nice little something. Okay, now you're gonna add your final ingredient, which is 2 teaspoons of salt. But, word of warning, the reason I put the yeast at the bottom of the bowl and I'm putting the salt in last is because you don't want these 2 to come into contact with each other until some time has passed, because the salt will actually kill the yeast before you want it to. You do eventually want it to stop the yeast from turning this bread into that episode of the Three Stooges where they try to make beer and they all add the yeast and it blows up. That won't happen, but the salt will stop the yeast from getting out of control, and it adds flavor. So you're just gonna add it on top. And then you're gonna take off any jewelry you don't need, because you are gonna get messy. You're just gonna stick your hands in. All right, and you're gonna just start to stir it with your bare hands. And eventually you're gonna turn this out onto the table, but first you're gonna stir this all together with your hands. If you have a stand mixer, or if you actually have a bread maker, I would highly recommend that you do this step using a mixer, because you're gonna get a workout here. This is arm day, folks. So you can just skip your at-home arm routine if you are making bread. All right, so this is starting to form a dough, which is fabulous. That's exactly what we want it to do. And once I get this mixed together a little bit more, I'm going to turn this out onto the table. And actually, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to turn it out onto the table right now. But you want to have some extra flour nearby, and you want to flour your surface. You want to clean the surface. And then you're going to turn your dough out onto this surface. You also want to have some extra milk nearby, because bread's a little finicky. Depending on the humidity in the air, you may need either to add more flour or more liquid. And so you want to have extra flour nearby, and you want to have extra milk nearby. So I can already tell that this is going to be too wet, so I'm glad I kept extra flour nearby. And you're just going to start kneading it My sister, who is the lovely videographer helping us out, calls this "I feel the need to knead." So we're gonna run with that. So while we're starting to knead, quick disclaimer: if you are feeling sick, you should not be preparing food for someone else, particularly not with your bare hands like I am. But I am feeling a-okay, so I'm making bread with my bare hands. I'm gonna add some more flour. And then, if you are using a stand mixer, you are going to knead this dough in the stand mixer using a dough hook for a good 15 minutes. And if you are kneading it by hand, that is gonna look more like 20 to 25 minutes. And rather than make you stand here and watch me knead this dough for 25 minutes, we're gonna use the magic of video editing and stop recording, and we're gonna come back after 25 minutes. See you when you're really tired out. Okay, so it has been 25 minutes. Just to give you an idea, it is rainy and gray out, and I had to add a lot more flour to this. If it's humid out, you're probably gonna have to add more flour. If it's really arid, you're probably gonna have to add more milk. But anyway, this is what you want it to look like. It is smooth, it is pliable, it is kind of like Play-Doh, and the consistency you want is you want it to be a little tacky. So if you stick your hands in, you want it to almost cling to the fingers, but then let go at the last minute, and that's how you know that it's not too wet and not too dry. So we're gonna roll this into a pretty round shape like that, and then you are going to take your bowl, you are going to plop this back in your bowl, and then I would recommend covering this with a damp, not like a soaking wet drenched towel, but a damp towel, covering it and then putting it in the warmest space in your house for about 45 minutes, and it's going to proof and let the yeast go to work. And for me, that spot is the radiator in our bathroom. So I'm going to put that there and see you in 45 minutes. It has been 45 minutes and we are ready for the big reveal. So remove the damp towel and admire the chemical reaction taking place in your bowl. All right, so the next step is we are going to remove this from the bowl and put it into our bread pans. Quick note, if you don't have bread pans, that is a-okay. You need some sort of tray, a cookie tray, a cake pan, a brownie pan, whatever. You're just gonna follow the same process for shaping the loaf and just put it on what you've got. It might not rise as high, it might spread out further because the benefit of this is that it compresses everything, but it'll still be bread, and at the end of the day, if you've got bread, it's gonna be okay is what I'm saying. All right, so you, if whatever surface you're cooking these puppies on, you wanna grease them. I used some shortening. You can use butter, you can use oil, you can use spray, whatever. I'm gonna take a little tiny bit of oil onto my hand so that the dough doesn't stick to my hand. And I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna grab this out of here. Oh, it looks so good. Look at it. And we are going to kind of roll this into a longish shape here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you made it, so it'll be perfect to you. Okay, so you want it to be kind of a longish shape like that, a longish tube. And then you want to find the center, and I have a knife here. You don't need to use a knife. You can use your bare hands. You can use whatever. But find like the center-ish, and then just cut it in half. If you have a bench scraper, all the better. Now, we're going to shape these. You're going to shape them into whatever shape you want. If you don't have, I'm shaping these for these tins, but if you don't have it, you can do whatever you want. There are no rules. This is your kitchen. You're quarantined. You're already following the rules by staying in, so you already get an A+. It doesn't matter what shape it is. Okay, So I'm making it to fit this pan. I'm just going to drop it in. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. This one actually, no offense, looks a little better. So I'm just going to plop it in. And then these need to proof again. So you're going to take your vessel back to the warmest part of your house. You're going to re-dampen your towel, drape it modestly over the top, and let it rise for another 30 minutes. Nobody said bread wasn't time consuming, but it is very tasty. So we will see you when these are done with their second proof. Welcome back. It has been 30 minutes, or maybe it's been longer. Maybe it took your dough longer to rise. That's fine. And now it is time for the magic reveal. Look how great they look! Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to say, I've been making bread since I was a little kid, and I still mess it up all the time. So if this is your first time making bread and it doesn't turn out the way you had hoped it would, you are not alone. Everybody's bread doesn't turn out the way they want it to the first time they make it. It takes a lot of practice. So now that that's out of the way, these have risen. They look beautiful. You are going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and you are going to bake these until they are a nice dark golden brown on the top. Probably going to take you anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes, maybe even 35. I would start keeping a really close eye on them after the 25-minute mark. And then once they are done, you are going to get them out of the oven. They are going to cool in their pans for 15 minutes. Then, if you like a softer top bread, brush some butter over the top of these puppies, and that'll keep the tops nice and soft. Skip it if you like a crunchier crust. After that 15-minute mark, after you've buttered them, they can come out of the pans. They should come out pretty easily, and they can cool outside of their pans for another 15 minutes. I would recommend either freezing one of these loaves until you're ready for it, or eating them really fast. And I would also recommend storing them in a plastic bag, like a Ziploc bag, or an airtight container, just to make sure that they stay fresh as long as possible. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Beverly Public Library. And if you try this recipe, take a picture of it and share it with us on our social medias, which are all linked in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy baking!